You are listening to Fast Track Podcast, the place to be to fast track your personal finance or fast track your business, or both, through a series of conversations with those who have learned it, done it, and made it. Before starting the episode, I have very exciting news to share with you. I am collaborating with financial imagineer Matthias Richter to launch the Fast Track Money course. This 6-week online course is designed to help young professionals in their 20s to early 40s to learn how to save more, earn more, and invest, using money as a tool to fulfill your dreams. We teach you the proven method that Matthias has been using himself in the last 20 years and achieved financial independence. So sign up today on fasttrack.live/money course to transform your relationship with money from today. Joshua is a professional musician and award-winning Welsh operatic tenor. He's passionate about topics such as personal finance and financial independence. In our space, only a handful of musicians talking about how to manage money, how to invest. Therefore, he created a podcast and YouTube channel called The Art of Money Saving to help self-employed musicians and others to learn about how to manage their money most efficiently with a variable income. In this episode, we talk about how freelancers should manage their money differently from full-time employees and his personal money philosophy. So let's hear about it. Hi, Joshua. Welcome to Fast Track Podcast.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
I'm very interested in hearing about your personal story because you are a professional musician. And then you have an account on YouTube and Twitter talking about personal finance. And I want to understand, how did you discover your passion for personal finance? Because those two topics are usually not going together.
No, that's a very good point. They normally don't go together. But ever since my childhood, I always had an interest in finances, for sure. I don't know where it came from. I don't know whether it's my family, but I always had this passion or curiosity about finances. And in fact, this sums it up quite well. I'll show you to the camera, but the listeners will be able to hear. I found this little poster in my apartment, and it's from my childhood. It's from 2003. And it says, 14-year-old schoolboy is available to sing solo at weddings, christenings, and small family celebrations. Competitive rates. And
that boy is you?
Yeah, that's me. And I made this little poster, and I went around all the churches in my town, and I posted it through there, hoping that I could make some side hustle income through singing. So I always had wacky ideas like that. So a passion for business, or a passion for making money. And you're right, the artistic world is a little bit different. There's much more of a focus on being artistic and being creative, and not so much on the making money side. And I can understand that. They're two ends of the spectrum. But how I discovered FIRE, or personal finance, it's through twofold. So first of all was meeting with a financial advisor. So the financial advisor those years ago introduced me into investing. And he said, you're keeping your money in cash, it's not going to grow. So I started investing through this financial advisor, and I then started to passively learn more about investing. And second of all was meeting another opera singer, and she introduced me into this book, and it's called The Money Book for freelancers, part-timers, and the self-employed. Her name is Rhiannon Llewellyn. It's a very Welsh sounding name. And she runs a page called The Vicar's Wife's Frugal Life. And she talks about being frugal, managing her money as a musician as well. And we met up, and we started talking about money, and we was like, oh, this is really exciting. And she said, have you ever heard of FIRE? No, I never heard of that. And that's where it began about 2 years ago for me, where I discovered this movement all about money.
Interesting. I particularly like this flyer story as a little boy. And I like you even wrote competitive pricing.
Competitive rates. Yeah.
Competitive rates. Interesting. And you work as an opera singer. Is it like fixed contract, or is more like a freelancer, pay based on performance?
It depends where you live. So in the UK, there are very, very few fixed contract positions. There used to be quite a lot historically back in the day, but in the UK these days, the only fixed term contracts for singers are choristers. So if you're part of an opera company and you're a chorister with Welsh National Opera or the Royal Opera House, those are the only two opera houses. Now, if you live in Germany, it's different. There are lots more fixed positions. I worked in one myself. I lived in Germany, Austria for 3 years, and I was employed there. I was employed by the theatre, and you go in every day, and it's one place of work. But I'd say the majority of singers tend to be freelancers, certainly the ones in the UK.
And then if you worked as a freelancer, how do you manage your cash flow? Do you have a budget or do you have a saving plan since, it's not a fixed income every single month?
This is what this book, the money book, that deals with this question very well. And this was a real pinnacle point for me of understanding. Going back to my childhood, so I always saved and I was an instinctive saver. So when I had the conversation with the financial advisor, I had a lot of money in cash, but I didn't need a technique to save money. I did it instinctively. But what reading this book did was it made me realize how inefficient the plan that was. So I was saving passively, which was great, but it's much better to have a plan. So one of the difficulties about being a singer is you have often big chunks of money coming in, but in single time. So you might have one chunk of money and that needs to last you 3 or 4 months. So you need to be very wise about how you use that money. One of the things I do immediately when receiving a fee is I halve it in my mind. If a concert fee is €3,000, I go, no, that's about 1,500. And it's normally about right. If I knock 50% off, that's normally what I net. So it's quite dangerous to think when you get an offer for a job. I always have it because it's dangerous to think, oh, that looks so much money, but there's lots of deductions. First is the agency fee. Agency fee can be anywhere from 5 to 15% for finding the concert. Then you got taxation, local taxation. You've got travel, accommodation. All of those things come off your inclusive fee. So there's all of these hidden costs. And I had this experience just last week. I actually had a concert, which hasn't happened for a long time. It was a live recording with the BBC orchestra, and it was inclusive fee. So I got a fee, but then the travel is deducted, the hotel, the petrol, all of that comes at your own cost. And you have to be disciplined because otherwise you can quite easily spend all of your fee on different things,
And you pay tax at the end of the year.
Yeah, tax is difficult particularly for someone that moves around in different countries. I really still haven't figured this out yet. So if you want to pay for an accountant that really understands international taxation, you can do that. But you can spend hundreds and thousands of pounds on these things. I had an accountant that I worked at the last 2 years, quite a high fee that I was paying. And I wasn't getting the solutions so I was going the extra mile by paying someone that knew about international taxation, but I wasn't getting the results that I necessarily wanted. And it's hard to deal with because there's no right or wrong answer.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have a bit of a think for the next tax year and try and find a new accountant. But international taxation is difficult to deal with. It can always catch you by surprise. It's a real pro for being strict with the budget. So this tax year, so I pay my taxes in the UK now, but I still work a lot in Germany. And when I work in Germany and get taxed there, I get a net fee, which doesn't happen in the UK. You always get a gross fee. So when I got the fee from Germany, I got, okay, well, it's already been taxed. Great. I don't have to worry about that. But for some reason, my UK tax bill, they said we can't offset all of the taxation that you've paid in Germany. So you're going to have to pay some more tax in the UK as well. And I hadn't prepared for that. So that then had to come out of another pot. The lesson is, with tax in particular, is you can never put away enough. So
Yeah.
if I'm putting away percentages, I'll never put away a basic 20%. I'll go 25 or 30 even. And you
Yeah.
always have enough just in case.
It's a very great point because as freelancers, especially if you have international projects, even if within EU, you still need to pay attention to, save some money at the side in case you need to pay more tax, not looking at the big lump sum you receive from the project and then go shopping.
Yeah. And you can always be caught out with various charges, and there's always little surprises that can surprise you. So the lesson really is to be prepared and always save a little bit more than you need to. And I remember when I was first working with an agent as well, which varies from agent to agent, but they have their commission, which was 15%, I think. But then it's a VAT registered company. So then they put 20% on top of the commission as well, which I didn't budget for. So that
Wow.
was a lesson as well. So, okay, it's only, it's only £50 more or something, but you go, okay, I have to find that from somewhere else. So I always now save more than you expect. And
Yeah.
it works out quite well that way.
It's a great tip to all the freelancers out there. Just
Yeah,
save
yeah,
more. Yeah.
yeah.
And the next question from my side is earlier you mentioned about how you discovered fire movement. Like, what is it about fire that fascinates you?
Now, I'm not much of a mathematician at all. I was terrible at maths in school. But the thing that fascinates me about fire is the numbers. Seeing that compound interest calculator, for me, that was the most exciting thing. To know that the work that I've already done, and so long as I can keep that money invested in the market and the market does what it has in previous years, then it's just going to look after itself and then could possibly go into the millions over the long term. That's amazing. That absolutely blows my mind. So that's the thing that most convinces me about fire. It's inspiring speaking. I get the privilege of speaking to people on my own podcast as well, The Art of Money Saving, and just asking people, so what's your journey of fire like? And one thing that I do hear that's quite common in the corporate world is people don't like their job very much, which I can't relate to at all. I mean, I went back to work last week and I thought, oh my gosh, I've missed this so much. So for me, I think I have a somewhat of a unique take on
Yeah.
fire, that I don't want to retire early,
Yeah.
particularly.
You can
I
finally sing again.
I can finally sing again. But I love the idea of financial independence as well. I really like that idea. That's very exciting to me. And I think when I look back at this year that this happened, I don't know if you've ever heard the terms of mini retirements.
Yes.
So for me, I look back at from March 2020 to March 2021, I view it as a forced mini retirement. So I would have never have choose to taken that time off myself. But the things that I've done in this year have kind of been retirement. I've started my own little project, side hustles, passion projects. And that's something I'm definitely going to continue into the future. But at the same time, the question at the back of my mind is when is the arts world going to come back? Because it's been hit very hardly by the coronavirus, and it's going to be a slow approach coming back to earning the income that I did before.
And I love that you started your side hustles, your podcast, your YouTube channel. I would never even imagine, when I saw your YouTube videos, that you are a musician, not someone related to doing videos, marketing, or presenting yourself in front of the camera. Okay, maybe you are used to be on the stage, but still great.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different skill, that's for sure. And talking about money is a different thing for sure. But I think that's a good thing about being, particularly a singer, is you have lots of transferable skills. So you know how to, being a freelancer, turn up on time, negotiate, network with people, be friendly, all of these different qualities. And I think that can work so well when you're creating your own podcast or YouTube channel, whatever it is. It's been a year of ideas, throwing mud at the wall and see what sticks. And
Mm-hmm.
not everything has worked.
As long as one or few of them worked, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the podcast is my favorite. I love the podcast because I get to speak to like-minded people. YouTube is it's a tough nut to crack because it's more of a solitary pursuit. It's you have your idea and it's just you and the camera. That's a bit more difficult, I find. But maybe one day I will get to a point where it's monetized. But at the moment, it's passion that's keeping me going.
Mm-hmm. And earlier you mentioned about you started this fire journey 2 years ago. Like, how was it like before, 2 years before? What is your money habits? How you deal with savings? How is it different?
So there was pre-meeting the financial advisor, and my money habits weren't that bad. Now I did have lifestyle creep, so the transition from going from university to having your first job, I was like, oh, hey, I'm earning money. This is amazing. But I was single, so I was still always living below my means. And I was fortunate that when I left university, I had quite a good starter salary, and that helped me live below my means. But when I think back, I think, oh man, I could have saved a lot more than I did. One of the biggest problems that I had before meeting the financial advisor was I didn't invest at all. I didn't know anything about it. Most of my money was kept in cash or cash ISAs, so they were a very, very low interest rate, and I didn't save into a pension either. So I wasn't I wasn't doing too well, like with my financial plan back then, but I had a lot of cash in the bank, so that was good. But as we
Yeah.
all know, inflation is the silent deadly killer, and if I stuck with that philosophy, it wouldn't have got me very far.
But I'm very surprised that when you graduated from university, got a good paying job, and you still managed to save so much cash, even though you haven't invested the way you wanted, but you didn't spend that much. You have a
Yeah,
lot of cash.
honestly, I kind of sometimes I scratch my head and I wondered how I did it. It's a mix of things. It really was. So I was, in the arts, people who appreciate music, appreciate opera, are very generous. So during my studies, I had a lot of generosity that people that funded my studies as well. I do have student loans, but not to the extent which perhaps some of the folks, particularly in the US, will have. And I was also a competitor. I used to compete in high level competitions, and I had success in those competitions, which had cash prizes as well. So maybe that contributed somewhat as well. But also going back to the poster, I was a businessman as well, and that was always at the back of my mind, and that doesn't come easily to all musicians. So when you have to negotiate your fee, people feel very uncomfortable talking about the money and is it too much? Is it too little? I didn't struggle with that so much. In fact, I have a funny story. Should I share this story?
Okay, then share since you already mentioned it.
um, there was one concert that I was doing. It's what's called an oratorio. An oratorio is a piece that's normally four singers and an orchestra and a choir, but no staging, just a normal concert. And the four singers, it doesn't matter normally whether you do more or less than the other singer, you all get the same fee generally. So I got asked to do this concert, and the man said, I think it was £500 okay as a fee. And I said, well, I'm going to be traveling from London and doing this and that. I said, actually, would £600 be okay? Because I got travel and the train. And he said, no problem at all, no problem at all. And then when it came to being paid on the day of the concert, with these types of choirs, they have a treasurer. And the treasurer had envelopes in her hand, and she handed one to each of the singers. And when it came to me, I think I was the last one to be paid. And she said, oh, I don't know why yours is more than everyone else, but there you go.
Because you asked.
Yeah, because everyone else is getting £500. But I asked, and that's why I was paid a little bit more. Now, there's a question. Did I deserve to be paid more? Maybe not, probably not. But I did ask, and asking, it got me somewhere, and the fruits of the labor were there in that extra
I think
£100. Sorry,
back
go
to
ahead.
your story. I think if you deserve to be paid more, I think you do, because how much value you are bringing to this performance is actually determined by the person, how much he's willing to pay you. And then you agree at the price, which is £600, and that is what's your worth. Everybody
Yeah,
else were paid by 500 does not mean they worth 500. They could be, worth 600. It's just they didn't ask. So I think you did
yeah. I
the right
think
thing, smart thing.
valuing yourself is very, very important. But also in the artistic realm, we have to realize that, and this is a very big distinction to make. So when I coach people in the corporate world, because I also do public speaking coaching, stuff like that, I start to realize there's one big fundamental difference, and this is the difference in the fire community as well. So in the corporate world, often people are talking about maximizing their income, so making as much money as you possibly can. And in the artistic realm, it's not like that. Money is not our number one priority. We're looking for artistic integrity, artistic experiences. So if we can have a career where we're artistically satisfied and we're happy, but we get paid a little bit less, we're fine with that. And it's quite a big distinction because I'm caught in between these two worlds sometimes. So I have to really remind myself, sometimes of which I'm in between, and that has its difficulties.
Interesting, because I have this business background, and when I look into this case, why cannot you have both? Because you can have your artistic career fulfillment at the same time you can be paid where you think I'm happy about it. You don't have to make a sacrifice, because your market rate is determined by if there's someone or organization out there is willing to pay for it. If they're willing to pay for it, then that's your market rate. There's no one dictates that you cannot be paid more, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, one of the strangest things about particularly the opera industry and the classical music industry in general is it's loss making. So if you think about an opera, I don't know if you've ever been to an opera, but you've got the chorus, you've got the orchestra, you've got the singers, you've got the set, you've got the costumes, you've got the makeup, you've got the theatre. It's very expensive, hundreds upon thousands of pounds. And even if you get a bum on every single seat, you're still at a loss. There's very few circumstances where opera makes money, and that makes it quite difficult as a career path because theaters or concert promoters are always reliant on the generosity of people that love this music. That's very different, isn't it, from
Yeah,
people
it's
that
very
are
different.
in a business where it's all about turning a profit. And
Yeah.
that's something I still haven't got my head quite around this whole idea yet. But
I didn't
uh,
even know it's like a loss making activity.
yeah, 9 times out of 10. I mean, of course, there are some concert promoters that do make a profit, but mostly it's a loss making.
Okay. And now you are not hoarding cash, I assume. So, what is your investment philosophy? How do you invest?
I began with the financial advisor, and quite recently, I must say, under a year ago, I changed my mentality with this, and I think it's important to outline this. So financial advisors have their place in the world, and they're important. So my financial advisor taught me and helped me set up an income protection insurance policy. Very important in my career, because if I'm to lose my voice and can never work again, that's going to be a big problem. But the fees of the financial advisor it was niggling at me, and the fees were expensive. And I got to a point where I thought, you know what, I know enough now. I'm not going to be picking all of the best funds in the world. I can put it in a tracker, and that's absolutely fine for where I'm at in my life at the moment. And that's what I did. I went to Vanguard. I found a global tracker that I was happy with, and you build up a portfolio and you start to see the swings. So 1%, up or down can be quite a large swing. And that's very exciting because it encourages you to stick with that mentality. And, the J.L. Collins book, all that stuff, that sums up my investing mentality very, very well. It's simple. Some would say it's boring, but I'm fine with that.
Boring is good.
That's right. Yeah, I think boring is good.
That's what works.
It's a long-term plan. Not quite clued up on how I feel about this yet. So with my portfolio, I think it's invested. If I leave it there for 20, 30 years, it'll do its job and I'll be able to retire comfortably. Job done. I could also add money to the investments as well, and I would get there much faster. So I'm kind of caught in between. I'm not someone that's in the corporate job and is adding hundreds and thousands a year. But sometimes I have to remind myself, Joshua, you should really keep adding regularly to your portfolio. And I think that's kind of been exposed during the coronavirus year because the income has gone, right down because of the nature of the work. So that's one of the difficulties for the moment, is finding how's that going to look for the long term. But my biggest priority for the next year, the next 2 years, is making sure that I'm earning enough so that I never touch that money, that it stays in the market and it just does its job. And then as the job situation perks up a little bit, I think the path will become clear.
So that's the advantage when you start investing when you are young, and then you save, and then you have a lot of cash or money put into the investment. And even you don't add more money, 20, 30 years later, it's going to be much bigger. So that's the power of like starting young. And
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? I mean, I can calculate at 7% or 8%, do all of these variations. I don't know what's going to happen. So that's also at the back of my mind as well, being you don't know what the market's going to do. So I shouldn't be putting all of my eggs in one basket or relying on that money to return X amount. So I'm a bit guilty of that. But what's great about the ETFs is you just put them in there and you just kind of forget about it. And it's the money's been away for 4 or 5 years now, and I just let it do its job. And if the market does grow, then yeah, I could be hitting the millions, and that would be great.
I talked to another podcast guest, and he talked about studying the history. And if someone is just investing in S&P 500, for example, one of the index funds, in the last 100 years, you do guaranteed 7,
Yeah, yeah,
8%
yeah,
per year.
yeah,
So in a way, you
yeah.
don't know what's going to happen in the future. Even though you should not mirror the historical performance to the future, but somehow it's diversified enough and it's low enough that people see the results.
Yeah, I mean that's very encouraging. Like as I said, and I think maybe my situation's a little bit more strange. I imagine that more people come to investing wanting to grow their wealth, whereas I had cash and I was like, well, how can I best use that? So it was a bit foolish from my side, perhaps, but typing in those numbers is very convincing. And you go, right, I want to be part of this. I want to make my money work for me as best as it can.
Yeah. And do you have do you have a financial goal?
I don't put I don't have a fire number or anything like that. For me, having a sense of freedom is very important. So whatever that would mean financially, I think it's difficult to put a number or a date on these things, particularly as a freelancer. So for me, it's about a state of mind and a type of lifestyle, and also being able to live in the way that you want to, and also I'm getting more and more convinced that I think generosity is going to be a bigger part of my financial plan than I ever expected. And that's quite exciting. A challenge for me as someone that doesn't come very naturally to me. So my previous mentality was, well, when I have X amount in the bank or X amount in my investments, then I can be generous, or I could give to charity, or I could start this venture. Now I'm starting to think, well, actually, if I want to do that kind of stuff now, I need to begin now, because adding a couple of zeros on the end of my bank account, it's not going to make it easier to be generous.
Mm-hmm.
And my fiance, who I'm marrying in 2 months' time, is very generous, and her behavior has rubbed off on me quite a lot, and I think in a good way. And likewise, I've taught her a lot about how to manage money, and she started investing for the first time, which is something she's never done before. So we're learning a lot from each other, and that's quite exciting.
And I hear like your podcast and your YouTube videos, you talk a lot about personal finance and sharing very valuable tips with your audience and your followers. Share some with my audience. What are some personal money saving tips that you think everybody should know?
Yes, it's a good question. I mean, I try to speak from experience. So I'm a creative person. I always try to think about what do creatives struggle with, or how could they improve their money management. And I think one of the best things that I did was, I hate this word budget. I hate the word budget, and I don't budget. But using percentages has been amazing for me. So, and that's something I passed on to my fiance. So when that bit of income comes in, I know that 25% is going straight into the tax pot, and I don't even think about it. And I've loved playing with those percentages and really finding how much do I need for rent, or how much do I need for generosity, or whatever it is. And you can really be playful with those. And that's been a game changer for me. So I would always encourage listeners to go back to the budget, and or to the percentages, and find really optimize. Because what's great about the percentages as well, if you get that raise in salary, percentages stay the same. You're putting more into your investments or into your pension, even though your salary is increasing. So I love that about percentages, because it kind of takes away the numbers, because we think a lot about the numbers, don't we? Um, so that's been a huge encouragement for me. What other things? Well, I like to talk about the day-to-day financial things as well, because I think that's fun. The way we interact with money. One thing that I was very guilty of is spending too much on, the cafes and stuff. And that was in the period where I went from university to work. And I was like, oh, I've got loads of money now. Great. Well, I was being very unwise with the way I was using it. And if I had a spare 20 minutes, I'd be going to the cafe and just getting a cup of tea so I could sit down and just kill time. And there's nothing wrong with going to a cafe and enjoying a cup of coffee at all. I think it's wrong to say you shouldn't go to the cafe and you need to be frugal. No, but you do need to be mindful about your habits. And I was not being mindful. And I wasted hundreds upon thousands of pounds on those needless coffees and teas. I didn't really need them. So that's a regret.
Right. It's
So
about
yeah,
conscious spending, right?
conscious spending. Yeah, be intentional, and take a step back, analyze your goals, and surround yourself as well with people that are going to inspire you to find that balance. And it's important as well to have lots of different voices in your personal finance life. So if you find that someone's being a bit too fundamentalist, or you're like, that's good, but that's a bit hard line, find someone to counterbalance it. So have different types of opinions, and it gives you a really well-rounded approach. But also know when to switch off and to say, no, I know my strategy. This is what I'm doing, and I'm not going to listen to all of this noise, because there's a lot of noise in the finance world. Bitcoin this, Tesla that, and it's easy to get sidetracked. That's why I love that book from J.L. Collins, because it's so simple.
Is it the simple path to
Simple Path to Wealth. I,
wealth?
I really like everything that he has to say, J.L.
Mm.
Collins, because he puts it so well, and it just encourages me to be boring and to accept that that's absolutely fine. You don't need to chase the next great stock,
Hmm.
and I'm perfectly content with that.
Hmm. In your podcast and YouTube, you talk a lot about how to manage money and also different kinds of tips and tricks. Where can our audience find you? Maybe you share with them your YouTube channel, your Twitter, your podcast name.
Yeah, sure, of course. So my channel is called The Art of Money Saving. So you can find me pretty much everywhere under that name. On Instagram at The Art of Money Saving, YouTube, The Art of Money Saving. The best place to go really is on www.theartofmoneysaving.com, because there you can find all the social media. I've also even got a section of freebies. So referral codes and things where you can get 20% off, or a free whatever it is, and no one's ever taken me up on that offer yet. I've just put it on the website, so I thought some of it is UK exclusive, but not all of it. So feel free to check that out as well. And yeah, I'm just trying my best to make sure that I can make a difference, and speak to people where they are. And it's been an interesting year. I've been almost doing this kind of money thing almost for a year now. So I can't believe it. Time has flown.
Yeah, time flies. And I particularly like how you can inspire other freelancers to manage their money better, because it's really different from when you have a fixed job versus having like project basis income. So have to be smarter about your money.
You have to have a much bigger emergency fund, that's for sure. I think Corona has been a great example for this, and I'm even thinking now, like a year minimum emergency
Hmm.
fund, which might be a bit daunting for folks, but it's a very different life than the standard income coming in, and you can never underestimate that. Like, it's very liberating when you're out on your own and you're just living that self-employed dream. But the highs can be high and the lows can be very low.
Yeah, protect your ass. Okay. Thank you very much for coming here today. I'm so glad to have you on my podcast, as I was on your podcast. And I hope more and more people can learn about money skills and be smarter at it. And it's essentially is a very important life skills that we don't learn in school.
Absolutely. No, it's been a pleasure talking to you. And if listeners are intrigued, then they can come and listen to when I got the chance to interview you on my podcast. That was a very interesting episode.
Yeah. All right. Thank you and have a nice day.
Thank you. Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Fast Track Podcast. Show me your support by liking this episode and sharing it with your friends. Join the Facebook group at Fast Track Podcast 1, or you can find us on Instagram, YouTube, and of course the homepage fasttrack.life. See you in the next episode.